Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Writers, Readers, and the Stories We Love. It's so much fun to be back with you all today. For those who are watching in from Maine, the sun is out, the
Mm.
weather is warm, and things are looking wonderful. So I am Josh Gauthier, for those who don't know me, and I'm here with my co-host, Daien Sanchez. You want to say hi?
Hey, hi everyone. It's good to be back. I feel like we did one of these a few days ago because of your your book release party. So
Yeah, everything is on just remote lately, but
yeah.
it means we get to have some fun times.
hmm
And those fun times include the illustrious Elizabeth Hand, who is joining us today for our talk. Liz's full bio is in the video description here. But for those who might not be familiar, she is an award-winning, best-selling novelist, short story writer, essayist, critic, and one of our mentors, workshop leaders from the Stonecoast program. So Diane and I have both had the chance to work with Liz, which was absolutely delightful. We went to Ireland
I
together.
know. I was just thinking about that. Oh, that
Yes.
was the best.
Oh my God.
That
Oh,
was
Uh,
so good.
wish we
yeah,
had a
so
time machine.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Liz, thank you for agreeing to join us for this. I know it's been kind of a busy, wild year, but I'm very happy that we've been able to do this together.
Well, thank you both. I'm delighted. It's so nice to see you both again. It's in the same place at the same time, almost. We
Yeah.
pretend we're in Ireland
Exactly. We're on the coast.
or on the coast.
We're
Yeah,
just we
exactly.
look out the window and the coast is there and I'm just gonna pretend that's where we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll be diving right into our conversation today, but for anyone viewing along, I will be watching the chat as always, so feel free to drop in comments or questions there. The stream has a slight delay, but we'll try to get to any of those that we can as well. But Diane, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I want to start us off a little broadly and just kind of talk about what it's like working across the genres that you have, and if like your process changes depending on the sort of story that you work on and such.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had a lot of people asking me about that, and I would say in the last year or so, the whole notion of cross genre
Mm-hmm.
has become, I guess, a thing or something that more people are aware of. But I honestly never really think that much about it. I mean, obviously, I think about it if I'm commissioned to write a story for an editor or a magazine or something, or I want to submit to a place and I know they publish only science fiction, or they publish only fantasy, or they publish only mainstream fiction or historical fiction or whatever. But I tend to just not think about it all that much. And the story kind of suggests its own shape and style. The book I just finished writing this week, which is called Under the Big Black Sun, it is a psychological thriller, and it is kind of noirish. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it started out as a psychological thriller, sort of a noir thing, and then a supernatural element kind of entered into it. And that was just something that kind of emerged from the story as I was writing it. And, there was a little while where I thought, now, wait a minute, is that, does that need to be here? Does that element, does that form really need to be in this novel? And then I thought, well, yeah, no, it really kind of does.
Mm-hmm.
So, so the book shifted, but it didn't shift all that much. I had when I've talked about this before, but when I started writing Generation Loss, which was the first Cass Neary novel, that initially was going to be kind of an urban, or not an urban, but like a contemporary fantasy novel set in our own world with some fantastical elements. And obviously it shifted, although there are little tiny kind of Easter eggs, supernatural elements in the Cass Neary books. But mostly it kind of goes back and forth between what the story wants to do with itself and kind of what I'm in the mood to write. If I'm writing one of the Cass books, I'm writing in a much more stripped down style than I am with other books, or other kinds of stories. So and I can write, and I do write in all these different styles. So it's sort of, you know, what the story demands, and also what I feel like working, what mode I feel like working in. I guess I'm not a visual artist, but I guess, you know, visual artists who work across different media may decide, all right, I'm going to be working in pen, you know, pen and ink. I'm going to be working in acrylics. I'll be working in oils or watercolor or pencil or whatever, sculpture, you know, and they'll decide what medium they want to use. Maybe they'll, you know, they'll have the same image that they want to create. They'll have, you know, an image of, I don't know, say a lighthouse. So how do you create that lighthouse? And then, you know, what medium are you using? But then also, what is it going to look like? Is it going to be realistic? Is it going to be a mimetic drawing of a lighthouse? Is it going to be abstract? Is it going to be pointillist? Is it going to be, you know, the abstract expressionist lighthouse? I don't know. But a lot of that is just kind of emerges as I'm working on the piece. So it sort of comes out of it.
So for your novels specifically, like, so I mean, I have different processes depending on the genre that I work on, not so much like the like short story versus full novel. I mean, more like I write fantasy and romance and sometimes sci-fi, but my process, I've noticed that from like the initial conception to the end is very different depending on the genre that I'm writing. Do you kind of experience that as well? Like, do you plan super detailed and then just still kind of let the story go where it goes, or what's your, like, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. That's an interesting question. I am not an outliner. If I have to, if I'm forced to do an outline, like sometimes an editor or publisher, they want you, you know, they require you to give them an outline. And I don't like that. I don't like doing it, because I can do it and I have done it. And sometimes it's helpful, but 9 times out of 10, I just end up going off piste and just doing something completely different. So the outline can be helpful in some ways, but for me, I find it's much more when I wander away from it that I find out what the, you know, like I was saying, what the story is about, what most interests me about it, you know. Mm-hmm. I am a very intuitive writer, which has, you know, advantages and disadvantages. And I always envy writers I know who are outliners, because to me, it seems like it must be very reassuring to know where you are going, because I do not always know where I'm going. When I'm driving, I always have I have the navigation app on. It is talking to me every minute of the way. I want to know where I'm going when I'm driving in the car. I do not want to go off road. I do not want to like discover the little byways. I want to just get there. But when I'm writing, it's the opposite. When I'm writing, I kind of, you know, I kind of like getting lost. I don't know if it's getting lost is the right analogy, but just kind of wandering off into a different place, because a lot of times, and I think this is true for other writers, I've heard say this, you know, there's something that totally takes you by surprise, that you're not thinking, oh my God, this is going to happen, or this scene, or whatever, this character. And then all of a sudden it pops out of seemingly nowhere. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those are great parts of a book or a story. Yeah. Sometimes discarded, but you know, often not. And I think it's just kind of leaving it to chance like that. But everybody works very differently. And sometimes I have, you know, a story. This happens more with short fiction than with novels, but I will have a story kind of fully formed in my head, and I know exactly what's going to happen. So I could outline that because I know exactly where it's going to go. Yeah. I know it's going to begin here. This, every scene, boom, the ending. I know exactly what's going to happen. So that happens sometimes too, but I don't know that that's ever happened with a novel, ever.
I mean, even when I have my stories completely like outlined chapter by chapter, things never go according to plan. So like, I don't even know what works for me anymore, to be honest.
So do you have to then, do you just wrestle them back in if it's going off from?
Well, I tried that with one of the romance novels, and that novel has yet to be finished. So I
Yeah.
just couldn't, like, it was like, I don't know, it was like the tone or just the story, it just wasn't working anymore. But I was very determined to stick to the plan that I had outlined. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't know how to move forward towards that like plan. And I got so frustrated with it that I just, put it to the side and started working on something else. But yeah, I don't know. I really wish I had something as like set in stone that I knew worked for myself, as you like seem to have.
Well,
So
I mean, a weird thing that I found happening with this particular book, which I have had it happen before, but in a different form. I probably told both of you when we had workshops together, I'm a big believer in if you're stuck or you don't know what's going to happen next, to just go and take a walk, or take a long walk, or do something and don't think about it. Don't think about it and just let the idea lie fallow in your brain. And something about taking that long walk or, a long drive, I don't know, whatever, works different things for different people. It relaxes your conscious mind enough that your subconscious can kind of get to work and produce that aha moment, like, oh, this is what needs to happen.
yeah.
And about a year ago, I started meditating during the pandemic to try to keep myself, calm down. One of the students I was mentoring, Liz Moore, we were talking, and she said she'd been meditating, and I thought, oh, all right, I'll try that. And so, and I don't do like serious meditation. I use a meditation app, and basically I'll just kind of sit, sometimes listening to music or whatever, for 20 or 30 minutes at a time when I first get up, and I just don't think, I try not to think about anything. I just let my mind drift. But what I found was happening with this book, where I did know what was going to happen, but not exactly how I was going to get there. I would find that when I would be doing that meditation and just sitting and not really thinking about anything, although I might be envisioning the scene in my mind, I would find that all of a sudden the solution would come to me like that, which I'd never had happen before. It was very strange. And it happened about just over a week ago when I was at the very end. I was days away from finishing the book. And I was sitting, and I knew I had to get from here to here, but there was this like one scene or scenes that I had to write. I had no idea how it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I was just like that. I was stuck. I was like, I know we're here and we need to get there. I know everything that happens, but how do we make that jump?
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, it was like a week ago Friday, and I was sitting, and all of a sudden this thing came, the idea came into my head. I was like, oh my God, that would work. Because I kept thinking consciously about different things. It was like a chessboard, and I'd be like, no, I can't move that there because then this would happen. No, I can't do that. And then all of a sudden there was it's like in the Queen's Gambit, when she's looking at the ceiling, except I was sober. And it was a novel, and it was not chess pieces. And I mean, it remains to be seen. I haven't heard back from my editor yet. She may read it and say, this kind of reads like somebody just was, I don't know, staring at the ceiling and waiting for God to tell her what to do next. So we'll see what happens. But I was very surprised that worked as a way of generating a solution to a genuine problem.
Yeah. Who knows? I might give that a shot. Maybe I can finally finish that book 4 years in.
Yeah, well,
Never know. Everything else I've tried hasn't worked out, so.
I was, meditation was something I was never really into, had no interest in, didn't work. My mind wanders too much. It still wanders all the time, but it actually is I found it a much more productive thing to do with writing, because if my mind wandered to writing, it would be actually come up with ideas that I could use in the book. Whereas the rest of the time, if I'm meditating, my mind wanders to like, oh my God, I forgot to call the guy to order the firewood for next month.
Yeah, and as an intuitive writer myself, I know like that moment of realization when the pieces just finally click into place, which happens at the most random times, is such a good feeling. I know I've had even two like separate story ideas merge into one out of nowhere.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah,
That's
and
cool.
actually, so the book that I am releasing this month was started as two separate stories, and I was just playing with both of them independently for a while, and then all of a sudden I realized like this is one thing, and then I was able to start writing it, and it took on life from there.
That's awesome. That's so
Yeah,
great. Wow, that's amazing.
yeah. I think that's the only time it's happened to that extent, but it's very fun when things work out.
Yeah, it's like, you got peanut butter in my chocolate. No, you got chocolate in my peanut butter. It's here, it's put together.
So I do want to narrow in a little bit on the Cass series, partly because I love that series so much.
Thank you.
But so my first question is just, what is it like spending so much time with one character? Like, does she still surprise you in how she grows and develops over the course of this?
Well, so far she has. I have the 4 books that I've done, and in each of those, yes, she's continued to surprise me, and I've always said that at the point where I'm not interested in doing it, like if it's not fun and challenging for me, I'm not going to do it. And or if there's not an audience for it, I'm not going to do readership. I'm not going to do it either. But yeah, it definitely she still surprises me. I think in part because she keeps moving around and ending up in different places. And so when she's in a different place, she's got to kind of learn the lay of the land and figure out what's going on. And from that vantage point, I think it kind of keeps her alive and engaged, and I hope engaging for the reader. The first book was set off the coast of Maine, and the second one was in mostly in Iceland, and the third one was in London, and then Cornwall, and the fourth one starts in London and then goes to Sweden. So every time she's a fish out of water, and I think that that's really imperative, that to have her as a character who's always going to be a perpetual outsider, and I think that defines her as much as anything else, that she just can't, she's incapable of getting too comfortable anywhere because of a lot of issues, trauma and addiction and just sort of, a pathological restlessness. So I think those things conspire to keep her on the move. I always have felt that like she's like old-fashioned pinball game. There's something when you're playing pinball, which I used to do a lot, and there's the light that comes on that says ball in play, and the ball's moving all over, and you're doing everything you can with the flippers to keep the ball in play. So she has to, she's the ball that has to be kept in play. So as long as she can be there caroming all over the place, then I think that, she's fun to write. And I haven't gotten tired of it yet. So, but she does need to be on the move, I think, for that to happen.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you don't really have a long form plan for her. Like it's kind of book by book where she ends up.
Yeah, it is book by book. I had an arc, there's at least one more book that I would like to write. It kind of depends on, a lot of things. If the publisher is going to want me to do another one, if there's going to be an audience for it, if I can, if I can sell it, if I can get an advance for it and sell it somewhere. Then I do have at least one more book I could write, and I could continue to generate more, but I don't want it to turn into shtick. I don't want it to be something where I'm not interested in it, that I'm bored with it, or readers are bored with it because it's the same thing over and over again. I mean, I think we've all seen that with, with series books, particularly crime novels or thrillers, where they have a protagonist who recurs throughout the series, that there does reach a point where a lot of times the author wants to kill them off,
Yeah.
retire them, because it's like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And, the audience wants it, but it's maybe not so much fun to write, or the character is just getting kind of tired. It's turning into, you know, people saying this is not as original or fresh as the earlier books. And so I don't want to go out like that. The books are, they have been optioned for a TV series in the UK. So that is, you know, and that's something that's going on right now. I'm not involved with it, except that it's, you know, when things happen, I'm told about it. And so, you know, there's a writer who is not me, who is working on it. And I'm hoping maybe in the next couple of months that I'll be able to announce that it's going somewhere, you know, that it's going somewhere and will be produced. But right now, it's just in, you know, it's in that kind of limbo. So if that happened and that was, you know, successful, then yeah, I would definitely, you know, at that point, I would be wanting to think about doing more books to kind of keep that going. And plus I think that would get me kind of jazzed to do it. So, but it's hard, you know, it is sort of hard to know what to do with the character after I've been writing those books, you know, for almost 15 years. So it's a long time. And there's only 4 of them. And I've written all these other books in between. So I usually take, you know, I usually take a couple of years off to write something different and then go back to it. So I did write something different and I did it. So I don't know. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to go back to the Cass novel now, if I'm going to wait. I'm just going to kind of wait and see what happens.
Yeah. A TV series would be so cool to see. Claire in our comments is saying she really hopes that happens as well. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah, I do too. There's a really there's an amazing actor who wants to play Cass. So I can't name, but like,
yeah,
who I met and talked with 3 years ago, and I was like, oh my God, is this even real? So if that happens, it would be fantastic. But it's kind of, you know, it's like dealing with anything with TV or film. It's like fairy gold. You think, oh my God, this is going to happen, and then you wake up and it's like all turned to dead leaves. So you just can't, you know, I can't get my hopes up about it. But it is, you know, it is kind of out there. It's like Schrodinger's cat. As long you know, as long as we don't open the box, it could be alive, it could be dead. Let's not open the box. We'll leave it there for a few more months and see what happens.
Yeah, and so I don't want to get into spoilers for anyone who hasn't read the book, but for Lamps and Banners, which came out relatively recently, one of the things that struck me was it felt very much like contemporary issues in the modern world was very quickly catching up with Cass in that book, more so than in the others. And I think coming out of like the Trump era and everything that we've seen kind of on the global scale, it felt very immediate. And so I'm just curious, like, was that in your head when you started writing that book? And what was it like kind of bringing things we were seeing on the national news into Cass's world and like finding her place in that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I was about a halfway or 2/3 of the way. Well, I was writing the book and Brexit happened. And my partner is I think you both know, John is a UK citizen, and up until the pandemic, I would spend part of the year there, he would spend part of the year here. And so I was very aware of what was happening with the lead up to Brexit, with UKIP and then Brexit and all of this. And so I was working on Lamps and Banners when that happened. So that went into the story. And then in 2016, when Trump won the election, I was like, oh shit, now that's got to be, kind of factored in too. Although because the Book of Lamps and Banners is set in London, the first part is set in London and not the US, it was just kind of like, the dark background noise there, which totally chimed in with the dark background noise of the Brexiteers and just basically the rise of white nationalists and white supremacists, which is something, that, like, I think many of us have been really concerned about for a while. And so that was something that I was already very aware of. And so I I actually met and talked with somebody who has an improbable name, but he's a real person, Spencer Sunshine, who is an expert in kind of identifying white nationalist, white supremacist groups, cells, and how they get started in mostly in Europe and the UK, but also in the US. And he's American, but he happened to be in Europe and the UK when I was there a few years ago. So I heard him talk or address a group somewhere about this. And then he and I, talked for a bit afterwards. I chatted with him and, got some information. So I did that kind of due diligence to find out what's going on. But for a lot of it, you just, you're there, like we're here, you're in the world, you read the newspaper, you walk outside, there are racist white supremacists here in Maine, that the whitest state per capita in the union, they're here and they're everywhere. And so I just felt and feel very strongly that I had to, acknowledge that as something that was going on in the world, because that is something that Cass would have been aware of. And that's something that would have really pissed her off, the way it really pisses me off. But she's in a better position to like actually go out there and do something. I mean, I can do something about it insofar as I can write about it or talk about it or vote, or do the things that we all do. But she could actually get out there and, punch Nazis. There's the Small Beer Press, the bookstore, Book Moon, they have their motto, and I have it on my, I have the bumper sticker on my fridge, and it says, "Read books, punch Nazis." and I have a T-shirt too. Anyway, so that's something that Cass is able to do that I'm not. I can read the books part, but I'm probably, as a 64-year-old woman, I'm probably not going to have a lot of luck punching out Nazis, but I'll give it a shot. If the opportunity arises, I'll be there. But yeah, so that's why that book took that turn. And it was written a while ago, because it was I'm not sure why the decision was made, but my publisher decided to publish Curious Toys first, even though Lamps and Banners was written first. So what happened then was, before it came out last year, I had the chance to do this time last year, I was doing just final revisions, proofreading of the text of Lamps and Banners. And I thought, wow, here it is. It's just a few months before publication. And all this real world shit is happening with this pandemic and everything else. I can put that stuff in the book without changing anything. I could have references to it because it was actually happening to me at the same time it was happening to Cass. So that was just kind of a fluke that I was very lucky I was able to do that.
Yeah, and that was one of the fascinating things when I was reading that book, was the way the stakes, like on the global scale, because she's always has very personal stories of what she's experiencing. And like I said, it felt like the world was kind of catching up, because she's got like the technology issues and the political issues and the global issues, which really gave that book just a different flavor as she deals with the personal stuff and tries to find kind of her way through all of that. And I think the book blends all those elements really well, in addition to kind of like just the magic that shines through the cracks in so much of your work, but that series in particular.
Oh, well, thanks, Josh. That means a lot. That's really nice. But yeah, it was interesting to do that, but to have the political element, the global element enter into it. But it was just one of these things that I felt like, in good conscience, with that particular book, I couldn't ignore it. And I knew, and I wrote it and I thought, well, is this going to be, it's just going to be a terrible book because of that. You know, when I write about political things, they tend to be, it tends to be more grounded in environmental stuff and things having to do with climate change. So when I write stories or novels that deal with climate change or you know, kind of post-apocalyptic stuff, that's the result of environmental collapse. I mean, that to me is political as well. Yeah. But with the Book of Lambs and Banners, it was a different sort of thing, because as you said, it's like it's a real world, they're real world events that she's engaging with.
So kind of going off a little bit off topic to what we're talking about, but still about casts. How do you go about like picking and choosing, you know, and researching the topics that you cover during her adventures? Because I mean, we have ancient burial mounds and Icelandic folklore and like all this fascinating stuff that like many people haven't heard of before. So like either what intrigues you or like how you research it and you know, stuff like that.
I love doing research. If somebody would like pay me to do the research and never write the book, I would be really happy. If they would say, here's a little bit of money, spend the next 3 years researching Icelandic folklore. And I'd be like, okay, thank you so much. I would love to do that. So I love to do research. And what I do with those books, and actually with pretty much with everything I write, certainly novel length stories, you know, if I'm writing a novel, I want to write about something I don't know anything about, so I have a chance to learn about it. And so I tend to, you know, fall into a setting, however I manage to do it. If I've read about it, if I visited there, if I decide to visit there, back when, you know, when it was a world we could visit.
Yeah.
And then I kind of fall down all the rabbit holes possible to research it. And sometimes it's other, you know, sometimes it's other things as well. With the Book of Lamps and Banners, I did a lot of research into the antiquarian book trade and rare books. And I'm lucky because my partner is a book collector, and we actually know a lot of people who are serious book collectors. So I was able to take advantage of their knowledge. But with other books, it's just, I mean, with other books that I've written, it's just a matter of just kind of, you know, doing the research, accruing a library. Before the internet, I would just be having to buy books. And back then, because there was no internet, there was no advanced book exchange, there was no Amazon, there was no, you know, way of JSTOR through your university to read papers. So I would be, you know, going into libraries, or basically anytime I was in a bookstore or a used bookstore or a new bookstore, just combing the shelves for things. And a lot of times I would just buy things relating to weird esoteric topics with the thought like, okay, maybe someday I will write about that, and I'll put it on a shelf. And then years later, I'm like, oh, now the time has come, I will write about that. I don't do that so much anymore. One, because unfortunately, there's not so many used bookstores left in the world. And for the last year plus, I would not have been able to do, you know, visit any of them. But I still do a lot of, you know, research, buying books, finding used books online, and, you know, finding academic articles. I try to use sources as much as I can. When I wrote Curious Toys, which was a historical novel set in 1915 Chicago, I did a lot of research into the nascent film industry, which at that time was centered in Chicago, and also into amusement parks, because amusement parks were a very popular mode of entertainment in the early 20th century. And there was one of them, a real one, where the book takes place. And the artist Henry Darger, of course, who's one of the main characters in the book, whose work I love. So it's mostly just having the excuse to like do a whole lot of research. And then, you know, a lot of it ends on the cutting room floor. A lot of it is just more research than I will ever in a million years be able to make use of. But maybe in a future book. And if nothing else, that I just, you know, interesting conversational tidbits that I can try them.
And how much time do you allow yourself for that like research before you're like, okay, it's time, you know, to start writing?
Oh, I'm always doing it.
Okay.
I could, you know, I tend to be doing it when in tandem with writing a book.
Mm.
Certainly with one of the cast books, because they're so character driven, much more than they're plot driven or anything else. They're driven by character and setting. That's how I feel anyway. So I go with her, and where she goes in the setting in Reykjavik or wherever she is, and then as I need to learn stuff, I'll just stop and research it on the ground. It's like, oh, okay, I've got to figure out how would somebody do this, that, or the other. I mean, there are various plot points in some of those books that where I would get to something, I was like, all right, and and these tend to be those moments that come out of the blue that you don't plan for, and I'm like, oh, all right, this is where this is going to happen. She's going to use X to do Y, but I have no idea about how you use X to do Y, or even what X looks like. So then everything kind of comes to a stop while I research that.
Okay.
It tends not to take too long, it can take, the things don't come to a grinding halt. I'll tend to, continue to be working and then doing the research on the side and, printing out stuff that I need to use, or just reading it online. So, and then of course I end up with all of this stuff, and it's like the book is done. I'm like, what am I going to, I don't need all this stuff. So it gets donated somewhere, or it gets brought to the swap shop, because it's like, obscure books on obscure topics that I've already read. I'm never going to reread them. Maybe somebody else will make use of them. I hope so.
Yeah, but it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole of like a topic that you're researching, and it's just there's so much information out there that it's just like,
oh yeah,
it's constant. Like you have to force yourself to stop, otherwise you'd keep.
I know you could
reading and reading and
forever. I can just, I don't know how what both of you are like, if you're both like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna start to look into Russian mythology and like folklore and stuff like that, and I'm like, and I'm more of the research before starting the book, because again, at least for this, it's like a fantasy. So for my fantasy, I just like having like a somewhat detailed outline to follow. Otherwise, my brain will just like take me everywhere. But I'm already preparing myself to like either set a time limit on the research, or like, something, because I could spend months probably on it and not get a single written word in there. So
yeah, it's fine. I know for me, part of the reason I so rarely write contemporary stuff is so I can jump to the story rather than having to research. And even the contemporary novel I'm revising right now, I made up a city just so I didn't have to learn like the geography of New York or something like that.
Right.
I was like, I can put whatever I want here, but it feels like a real city.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that's been my approach, because I've gone down those rabbit holes of like some one line sometimes that I want to get right, and I'll spend like 4 hours reading about stuff.
Right.
Funny.
I do want to pause real quick on Claire in the comments. It just has a comment saying she loves hearing that your mystery series is driven by character and setting rather than plot. It gives her hope that she can write the book she wants without figuring out the plot first, which seems like a real challenge. She says, thanks for the inspiration.
Oh, well, you're welcome. It can be a challenge, and you do at some point have to come up with a plot, or at least I have to come up with a plot. But I think that if you have a strong enough character or a strong enough setting, or I've told students this over the years in various workshops, you really don't have to be good at everything. Okay. Ideally, you're a great plotter. You're great at character. You do perfect dialogue. You're a wonderful prose stylist. Your settings are always amazing. I don't know, what am I leaving out? But the thing is, you can compensate if any one of those things is not your métier, if it's not what you're really good at. And for me, I know plot is not what I'm really good at. But there are other things that I have, worked at hard over the years that I know I can do. So I try to focus on those. I focus on character, I focus on setting, To some degree, I focus on dialogue, and you do need a plot, but you can get away with a lot. I mean, think of all the movies that we have seen in which you, especially, crime novels, crime movies or thrillers, and you're like, watch, and I've had this happen with books. You're watching the movie and you're like, oh my God, this is so great. This is so entertaining. And then like it's over and you sit there and like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. That makes totally no sense. What happened to that guy? And what the heck was she doing? There's a famous story, I think, about Raymond Chandler with, I believe it's the Big Sleep. And there's a scene where I think what happens is like the chauffeur or somebody like drives a car, limousine or something over a cliff. And I don't know, I can't remember it. It's a famous anecdote, and it is in the book. But when it was being adapted for a movie, the director said, "Mr. Chandler, what? Yeah, like we're making a movie, and this happens here. That what happened with that? We need to know that." And he's like, "I don't know. I have no idea. You figure it out." So, yeah. So I think you could do a certain amount of that with whatever you do. So go, Claire.
So kind of spinning off from that a little bit, one of the things that really stands out in your novels is the voice of the characters. I'm thinking of specifically like Cass and Curious Toys and some of these central leads that have so much personality that just comes through the page. What is it like trying to just find their voice as you're more toward the beginning, like as you're starting with these characters? And just finding who they are. Do you have a process for that? Is it just exploration?
I think it's mostly exploration. I think it's kind of trial and error. I've written books where I could not get the voice right, and I've thrown out entire completed novels and gone back again multiple times to get the voice right. And it's like I've described it. It's like trying to tune in a car radio when you're driving, back when you had the little radio dial in the middle of the country, and trying to get it, and then all of a sudden there's all this static, or you get these little snatches of different voices talking, and you're like, oh, maybe that one, but you can't tune in on it. But then finally, when you get it, you got it, or I know I've got it. So yeah, with Cass, I don't know. At some point, I heard that voice in my head. With other things, the character of Tony Maroney in Chip Crockett. With Pin, that was a character who I felt when I finally got her voice, it was just that was another one that was very clear. But it can take a while, the protagonist, one of the two protagonists in Radiant Days, it took me a while to get her voice. And in Wilding Hall, I had various, failed versions of that book before I finally scrapped them all. And then I ended up with a book that has like half a dozen different voices because it's an oral history. And none of those voices were the voice of the characters in the earlier failed versions. It's just somehow or other when I struck on doing it as an oral history, I was able to tune into all those different voices. And the book I just finished, Under the Big Black Sun, the protagonist, it's not a first person narrator. The Cass books are first person. And this one is a very close third person. And it's a young man from Maine. He's in his 20s, mid or late 20s. And he's very, he's not really naive. He's just, he's not really traveled a lot or done anything. He's working as a carpenter, and he, he has a couple of years of college, but he never graduated from college. He never really, he studied to be an EMT, but he didn't get certified. And he ends up getting a job opportunity to go to one of the Hawaiian Islands to be a caretaker. And then, sinister things happen. But what I wanted to do with that character is very intentionally, I wanted a character who was one, not a toxic male. You know, he's a flawed person, but he's not a toxic male, because I felt like I have read and written so many toxic male characters, but not every guy I know is a toxic male, and especially a lot of younger men that I know are not. I think they were raised in a different, you know, with different values than people from my generation were. So I thought, this is a real challenge. How do I depict the point of view of a decent guy? Because decent people are very difficult often to depict on the page, because they are not as interesting as a villain or somebody like Cass, who's really damaged and a you know, and basically a fuck up, you know, in many ways. So for me, the challenge was, all right, how do I write a character who everything's going to be seen from his point of view, so it's very close to him. And how do I write him so that he's compelling, so that people are not going to say, oh my God, this guy is boring. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy, you know? And so it was interesting. It was a challenge. And I've written things before from male perspectives, whether I've done them successfully or not. I think I have. And I think, you know, the critics and readers seem to think I have. Maybe if people reread them, maybe no, I haven't done a good job. But, you know, so I've written from male perspectives before, and even at least once from a first person. So that was not the part that I found challenging, but trying to find the voice of that kind of person and that particular person, it was a challenge. So, and I hope, you know, I will definitely be doing at least one revision on the book when I get my editor's notes. So I'll find out at that point if it worked or not. You know, if it's something that's going to, you know, how much rewriting I'm going to have to do, fine tuning of that character to make sure that he's somebody that compels the attention. But then another thing too, sometimes I just, you know, a character will be very close, will be inspired by somebody who I know, or somebody I have observed, or an historical figure. You know, I've written several things that, at least 3 novels that are historic, you know, basically historical novels that have historical settings and have real historical characters in them. So in that case, somebody else did all the hard work, because they lived their interesting life 100 or however many years ago, 200 years ago. And I just have to do all the research into their life and then try to bring them to life on the page.
I find your comment about trying to get that male point of view, like it's like hitting home, because that's always the one that I've always had the most trouble with. Because I mean, the male point of view that I have is just what Hollywood and like society and stuff tells me is the male point of view. And I don't know if sometimes I feel like it's not accurate, because I mean, when is Hollywood ever accurate, you know? But
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think I struggle with it so much that I just haven't gotten around to trying to figure out what I want that to look like for some of my books. But
Yeah,
I'm gonna try now, because it's like I really, really want to, and especially, I mean, in romance, which is what I mostly write, there's a lot of that like dual point of view with the male and the female character, and I really want to be able to write that too. So you like you said, you work as a literary critic as well. How do you think some of that work has influenced your writing, you know, your short stories and your novels? And
well, I think I don't know how much it's helped with my own writing, because I can still get things wrong all the time. You know, you would think, I mean, I've been reviewing books and writing critically about books, and also, you know, teaching writing for decades, for 32, 34 years now. I've reviewed thousands of books, and unfortunately, like, reviewing the books does not always mean that you know, that you can see the problems in your own work.
yeah.
That's been my experience, you know, but it has made me aware of certain things. You know, I have over 34 years of doing it. I have learned from like You know, you look at somebody else and you think like, oh yeah, ooh, those pants, bad idea. I'm not going to ever wear those pants. Oh wait, I have a pair of those pants.
Yeah.
Oh, I have worn them. All right, I'm never going to wear those pants again. So sometimes it's easier to recognize in other people's works things
Always.
that I do wrong, you know, that I do in my own work, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I don't want to do that so much. So yeah, so I'm sure it has helped. You know, it's also been kind of it makes it in some ways sort of less fun to read, because I'm always reading critically now, because I've been reading critically for reviewing, but also with students for such a long time, that every time I read something and I'm like, oh my God, this Melville guy is just going on about this freaking whale. And it's like, you know, but where's track changes? Yeah, so it is something that I'm hyper aware of when I'm reading things. And I'm always, it's not that I'm looking for something that's wrong. I'm not. I'm looking like, I don't want to think about it. I just want to totally get lost in the story. And that does happen, obviously. It does. But it is hard to take off that critical hat and just think like, all right, I'm not going to think about it. This is somebody else's book. They want to do it that way. They meant to do that. They like those pants. Let them wear those pants.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Well, I don't review critically, or like professionally, but I know just as a writer, I feel like my family gets fed up with me sometimes, because we'll watch a movie and they're all like, "That was great," and I'm like, "The pacing was off. The character development was so wonky."
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, it's hard. I think it's an occupational hazard.
Yeah.
Or can be.
Yeah. So I want to jump back to the comments. So Cliff Johns is tuned in as well. And he had an interesting question. Have you seen any kind of fundamental changes in how students are writing over the years that you've been teaching?
Oh, really good question, Cliff. Yeah, I think that I think that, I mean, this is obviously a generalization, but a lot of emerging writers, there is a level of political awareness, I think, especially in the last few years, that is new and good. Like, I think the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter, I think, and just, you know, with LGBTQ, you know, queer people, trans people, that, you know, there's a lot of writers now engaging with with their identities, with the identities of their characters that may or may not reflect their own identities. So that is something that I definitely have seen in the last few years, teaching, you know, not just at the MFA program, Stonecoast, where I teach, but also at the Writers Hotel, which is a conference, and then at Clarion and Clarion West and Odyssey, different places where I teach, that there is a level of political and cultural and social awareness that I think was not there maybe 10 years ago. And I also think that there's a level of, you know, people are also impacted by TV, movies. I mean, that's always been there, but I think with streaming, with people watching more stuff, I think in a good way, some of in the ways that TV series kind of have become almost like Victorian novels and how intricate they are. I think that you get, you know, writers who incorporate some of that level of complexity into their narratives more so. And some of them, maybe they've been reading, you know, they've all been reading, I don't know, David Foster Wallace, they've been reading Garcia Marquez, they've been reading all kinds of writers who do complex stories, you know, Nnedi Okorafor, whomever. weaving all these different things into them. But I also think a lot of it comes from watching a lot of stuff. And sometimes too, there's just, writers who are people who I can pick them out very easily, that they have spent a lot of time gaming. And so their writing reflects a level of engaging with narrative that to me seems to come from gaming. And when I ask them, so are you a gamer? Spend a lot of time on World of Warcraft? Oh yeah, I do. So that's something, and in my experience, their writing needs to be fleshed out a lot more. It's like you have to. When you're gaming or watching a movie, a character moves from here to there. When you're writing something, you have to tell us how they did it. So, so that's something I see occasionally, less often than the others.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I know it's so, I've seen conversations about how technology and culture and all these things influence even just what stories are being told and the way they're being told. And like you said, right now, I think in publishing, there are a lot of conversations, at least that I'm seeing, about representation. And
Yeah, absolutely.
and like there's so much to go, but it's good to see that being talked about more openly.
Absolutely. And I mean, it was just, it obviously should have been happening all along, but the fact that it's happening now and it's happening a lot, I think is fantastic. I think it's a real bellwether for change. I think we're already seeing it. There's so many, wonderful new writers coming out, new voices. And I think that this is just kind of the floodgates being opened. I think that we're going to see a lot more of that in just the next couple of years. And I think we're going to see, a lot more of it because a lot of people, since the pandemic began, have been writing a book. I know several people who, had never thought they would write a book and decided to write a book. So, so I think, yeah, we're going to be seeing more of that.
Yeah, we are coming up on time. I have one more question, but before I get to that, I just wanted to, do you have any other comments or thoughts that have come up that we haven't touched on yet that you want to share?
Nope. You've all had wonderful questions and insights of your own. So yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah. So for the last question, just in a very broad sense, and this can be books, television, movies, anything. Just what is something that you've been enjoying lately for storytelling?
Well, let's see. I'm reading a book that I came across a reference to somewhere recently. It's called Galore, Galore, by it's a Canadian writer named Michael Crummy, and it's set in Newfoundland, Canada in, I don't know, the mid 1800s. Writer I'd never heard of before. Really cool book, kind of like weird magic realism, family saga. It's sort of like if 100 Years of Solitude took place in Newfoundland. So it's a really interesting book. So I've really been enjoying that. And I've got Jeff Vandermeer's new novel, which I'm going to start. And so I'm looking forward to that one. And for TV series, I just, like everybody else, I binge a lot of things. Right now I'm watching the British series Sex Education, which I don't know if anybody has seen that, which I love. It's just very sweet, very funny, very, very graphic without being creepy. It's just very funny and sweet about, teenagers discovering their own, not just sexuality, gender and relationships, but some of the adults in their circle as well. And so I've really I've been binging on that, and that's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Daien, anything you want to pitch?
Not really. I've been in a slump book-wise where, I've read a few books in the last couple of weeks, but nothing that I've loved. So that's been kind of tricky. And in terms of TV, the only thing I think I've been watching is Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the new Law and Order organized crime show. But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and Manifest, because Manifest came back. And that's a love-hate relationship I have with that show. So
Yeah, kind of a lesson in things that don't work.
yeah.
Yeah. The novel I just finished was very, very dark. So I've been going very light in my viewing. So Sex Education and Call My Agent, the French series. So
Yeah, no, I know that feeling, the needing something different after spending a lot of time in a certain tone. So I'll pitch. So I haven't read a lot of manga, but people I work with read a lot of it, and so and being at a library, I have access to all the books, too many books. So I stumbled across a series called Spy X Family, and it's kind of this alternate, it's like the East and West Berlin, except it's a fictional city, but two rival governments sort of at war with each other, lots of spycraft. And the main character is given an assignment to infiltrate a prestigious private school and get close to somebody in the opposing government to figure out what he's planning. And to do this, he has to pull together a fake family. And so without knowing it, he proposes a fake marriage to this woman who turns out to be an assassin. And then they go and they adopt a girl from a local agency, and she turns out to be a telepath. And none of them know the other person's identity. And so they're trying to save their country, all while living secret lives and hiding powers. And it's got like dark spycraft stuff, but it's also just ridiculous and really heartfelt all at the same time. And it's been delightful. So
that sounds really fun. So that's a manga?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's fun because manga tells story, like the sorts of stories I don't see in other forms and genres. Like some of the premise ideas that they'll come up with like this are so unique and just so much fun to kind of dive into and experience.
Oh, no, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Really fun.
So yeah, we're just about at time, but thank you everyone who tuned in and offered comments and questions. Thank you to everyone also who comes and watches this later. Like all of our videos, it will be archived on Facebook and YouTube. So feel free to watch and recommend. And Liz, thank you. I'm so glad that we got to do this.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. It was really so much fun to see you. This is great. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, we give you each a big virtual hug.
Yeah, made me feel like I was in Stonecoast again.
So, okay. Well, thank you.
Bye guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye. Take care.
Bye,